Where do you start when you're asked to talk about yourself as an artist? What are my motivations and where do the inspirations come from? And not to forget the childhood experiences. Did these have an impact on the direction I took? Were there causes in my life that affected on how I pursued my personal and artistic path? Some of you here tonight know me, but for those who don't, I am a daughter, a wife, a mother, a friend, and an artist. And when I was 12 years old, I experienced what it was like leaving everything behind you knew to start a new life in a better world. But this is not where my story starts. I'm going back another 12 years. In the late 70s, I was born into an average working class family in the eastern part of Germany known as the DDR. For those who are not familiar with the German history, and I don't blame you because it's a long time ago, here's a quick introduction. After the Second World War ended in 1945, Germany was divided into 4 zones, occupied by Russia, France, England, and America. In 1947, the Cold War began, and that is where the Western Allies and Russia decided to establish their own separate government with 2 different currencies. In 1961, so 16 years later, the East German government decided to build a wall overnight around Berlin, as well as fences at all checkpoints to keep the citizens in the country. Later, this wall became known as the Iron Curtain. Here you can see me and my mum, but as you probably already noticed, there's no father in this photo. He was at the time of my birth on the other side of the wall. Why this all happened is another story and would take too long to explain. Sadly, he never had the opportunity to become a member of our little family. And just to finish off this chapter, I would meet my father when I was 18. But after such a long time, we both felt that we had nothing in common and went our separate ways. And now back to when I was 12. On one sunny morning, my parents told me that we were leaving East Germany to have a better life in the West. 2 weeks later, we were sitting on the train with nothing but a suitcase each. As soon as we arrived in the West, we registered with the Department of Immigration and became officially refugees. Even though being technically from the same country and speak the same language, we had to go through the same procedures as anyone else entering West Germany. I was so happy when we left the refugee accommodation, that's me at the front, and finally moved into our new home. We had nothing apart from some donated furniture. We definitely were one of the few lucky ones because we already had families living in the West who supported us by giving us things. We basically had to start from scratch again. As you can see in this photo, we didn't have much, but I was happy. The question is, though, did these experiences really shape my artistic direction? Well, I guess everything we experience as a child will shape our future in one way or another. This is an artwork I made for a group show where you had to respond to a book that had left a strong impact. And for me, this was with no doubt the stories from the book Stasi-Land by Anna Funder. In order to feel safe, people in the East looked away and became politically inactive, apart from some individuals whose lives were destroyed for speaking up. Freedom of speech is priceless. Even today, over 25 years later, East Germans are still different people to those in the West. due to the way of living for 2 generations under mass surveillance. I believe that due to my childhood experiences, I wanted to give those a voice who need it the most. My work focuses on the voiceless members of our society, like children or animals on the brink of extinction. To me, they represent the future, yet they have no say in any decision-making. Also, when you create an artwork in a public space, you have to follow rules, because you shouldn't offend anyone, basically. In my case, I decided to create public artworks that have a positive message. In this case, I like to highlight the innocent and playful nature of my subjects. I guess both positive and negative messages can be powerful, but because it is public art, the artist needs to be mindful of what gets created in a communal space. This image, for example, is called Seed, and was one of my first ever paste-ups I did in Chippendale for the Beams Arts Festival. On the right-hand side of the artwork, my son wrote the words, "I don't want to protect the environment. I want to live in an environment that doesn't need protecting." Thanks. But does art actually have the power to positively change people's lives, views, and opinions? I believe it can be done, and it's called community art. Some of you might think straight away of lizard mosaics, quilts, knitting groups, and don't get me wrong, these are great things too. But tonight I would like to talk about something that actually does have the potential to change lives. And when done properly, which means by an experienced artist or organisation, it can have a profound impact. Back in 2012, I worked on my first ever community art project called My Suburb, My Community, which was part of Penrith City Council's Magnetic Places. It was a project where teenagers from Kingswood High took photographs of their suburb. The brief was to capture places and things they liked about Kingswood, but also what they didn't. Each photograph was accompanied by their personal opinion, why they took the photograph. Everyone's work was exhibited at the local train station for everyone to see and read what young people from the area thought about Kingswood. One powerful quote from a participant that got some attention from some locals was, "This is a local playground which is not being visited much by families. The play equipment is damaged by graffiti and the ground is muddy after a long period of rain. Drug users leave syringes lying around, which makes it unsafe for children to play. I think the playground should have rubber matting and be kept clean so children can play safely." Another Magnetic Places project I did was also in Western Sydney, called Generation Z. Young kids from Warrington Youth Centre had taken photographs of each other, which then got turned into large paste-ups. Research has shown that art in places like train stations reduces crime and vandalism. So we decided to paste all the images around Warrington Station, which again was welcomed by the locals. Again, you might think, hey, I'm not an artist. What can I do to create change? I believe we can all have an impact in this world, no matter if it's yours or someone else's. You can plant a seed that could grow into something wonderful, and if it's helping an old lady across the road, being kind to others, or donating a few dollars to an organisation that can create positive change. And before I finish, I would like you to reach into your goodie bag, or even later, that's fine, to take out a piece of paper with the words priceless on it. Please take a few minutes and think about what is priceless in your life and write it down. And at the end, I will collect the piece of paper and stick it next to my artwork with the stripe-faced dunnet who's close to extinction in New South Wales. Thank you very much.